Well, good evening, everyone, or good day, or whatever time it is where you are. Umber Ray's here to talk today about some team building stuff. Now, it's been a few days, so we've got the new characters here on JP. They've only been out a little bit, but the evidence is quite strong to them being very, very strong. So today I'm going to introduce and talk about 3 teams. I'm going to talk about team building, and as you can see here, I just want to demonstrate a little bit because while I'm not exactly in the highest of tiers, I haven't been running this in Arena this week because Arena has different bonus units, but this will be pretty much my team for next week in Arena. I just want to show this off and talk about this right now. This is my Guild War team that I run. This is the first back to regular Guild War night that we've had since the game has come back, and I was trying my new team, and as you can see, 6 stars. The results are pretty good, and we're going to talk about the best, and then we're going to talk about my variations on it, and then kind of go from there. I'm not saying that I'm the best ever now because of these characters or anything like that, because quite frankly, there are better combinations out there, and we're going to look at them first. But I'm also going to show how you can make do and some pretty good mid-tier teams with just a few slight alterations and a little bit of duct tape. So here we go. Let's start it off. And so first off, we're going to start talking about this. Actually, I realize now something really quickly. I'm just going to pause the video and change. Right, done this for you guys. Now I'm not recording in HDR, so my monitor hurts my eyes more, but hey, at least it's easier to see. So talking about this, we are going to see here 2 of the what are considered to be the strongest formation of teams. They have not officially been put on Game 8's strongest team list yet. Mostly because it's still too early. There's still people out there testing them in guild battle and arena and whatnot before we make any kind of judgment. However, Peachin's videos this week basically tested essentially what is these exact 2 teams. If you go to Peachin's channel, you can definitely check that out. But here we can see this one right here is the light-based one with the new version of Mont. And here we can see the new one of Exdeath. And these 2 teams have not got into direct competition yet. I have not seen any video evidence of that. So it's hard to say what exactly will be the strongest. However, from what I have seen in Peachin's videos, I can say this for certain. Both Exdeath and Hero Mont's teams are looking to be some of the strongest in the game. They, for one thing, completely and utterly destroy evasion-based teams. But not only that, even if we just stop there, that would be quite the headline, I think, given that evasion teams are everywhere on JP. And if 2 teams can flat out just straight murder those things, then it's going to be happy hunting. But it goes a little bit further than that. Both of these teams, from what I've seen in their performance against others in 3-on-3 matchups, basically states that Exdeath and Hero Mont teams are some of the definitive strongest teams in the game. So this is basically, as far as I'm concerned, looking at this webpage, a formality for the fact that, yes, these teams will probably be Tier 1 very shortly and will push what we've seen in the past down. Now, for comparison, this is what Game 8 has essentially said is some of the what is considered to be the Tier 1 teams in the entire game overall, and I would tend to agree with that. Evasion does things really well. Yuna and AC Cloud are definitively strong, and Sadali and Exia are both fantastic. And all of these teams are basically contributing to what are considered to be best. But I would say that they're going to be pushed down very quickly by these new teams, for better or worse. So now let's take a look at essentially what is the game plan here. Because Exdeath basically has found a home with Shreken, and that shouldn't be too terribly surprising, given that Shreken is one of the strongest characters still, even this far into her lifespan. He is still definitively up there, and I think that her and Exdeath make a really strong winning combination. Both of them have high survivability and are capable of dishing out a lot of DPS very quickly. So taking a look at the build here, Exdeath is running his own sub job. Shrekken is running, I believe it's Messenger. It's the staff with the shinies coming out of it. I think that's what it is. Because, well, hey, what the heck. Let's actually do have her, and we will be taking a look at this in a second. So let's just jump over to my own comp where I have already have this set up, and we can take a peek at it. So 1 second. That's horribly outdated. Please don't look at that. And so, yeah, that's the correct one for anybody who I'm not 100% certain on what is the name for it. So if someone can put it in for the comments for me, that would be super helpful. But let's get back to what we were talking about. The big things of note here is that Summer Resnick is rather important for this to be considered tier 1, because Exdeath has essentially no curse resistance on his own. And if you want to free up just him having some incredible armor that makes him really one of the most difficult mages to kill in the entire game while still having incredibly high DPS, then Summer Resnick's aura for basically canceling out curse is invaluable here. And in the future, if there are other healers that can do this, well, then you're probably fine. As for potentially using some kind of bow-based unit that could heal curse, you know who I'm talking about. If the vision card crossover was there, which I have not found myself at this point in time, then it could be possible to flat out replace Summer Resnick at some point in the future, especially if another healer comes out with a similar capability to her. But Exdeath essentially runs that, and 1 second. Right, apologies for that. But runs Luciel's Trust Mastery on it and his own weapon. And that makes sense because that staff, the Reliquary staff, is better served on Shrekken anyway. Already essentially been proven. You'll notice that Exdeath Trust Mastery is down here. And we have the white hat, the white slime hat on top of Shrekken. And just make sure that she's essentially perfectly well built to kill evade-based teams. And yeah, this team essentially has no issues dealing with that because most of the time they just can't deal enough DPS to even successfully get through these two characters, let alone get around the anti-evasion procedures that these have. But yeah, it's interesting because Exdeath's Trust Mastery and Exdeath's character and Exdeath's weapon, which is not a farmable weapon, by the way, it is just you do a quest and you get the one copy of it. Exdeath is absolutely an incredible package at this point. Trust Mastery character and equipment are all tip-top tier. As you can see, they are just all in unison being used. So the big problem here is really vision cards. I think that vision cards is the most annoying thing if you're trying to build this. For example, if you don't have the Wind Zaku bird summon that you can see right here, that does take down the performance a little bit. That is essentially a tailor-made Esper for Shrekken, and not having it just isn't particularly a good thing. But it is get buyable. Also, you can see just newer things such as the 8-headed Arachi dragon for healing potential up, Summer Resnick, which is just limited and out of season here on JP, as well as her vision card, and then limited vision card, limited vision card. And that seems to be the biggest problem for anybody who's like salivating at this. Like, honestly, like, I love Exdeath so far, that he is performing well and that he is just insane. But the problem is that the insane cost with most of the builds that I've seen built around Exdeath are all just limited vision card, limited vision card, limited vision card, which is really difficult. And most of the time you just don't actually have access to a lot of these vision cards anymore. So you do kind of have to retrofit it, which I will show in a little bit with my own part. And you know what? With a little bit, let's actually just keep it in tow and show this off. So personally, I don't have Summer Resnick, so in creating this this similar style setup, I had to make certain concessions, and for me so far it's gone really well. Sephiroth, I find, is started to disappear from a lot of the teams out there, and you can get curse resistance from other places, or just kind of cross your fingers and hope that it's not good. You're not there. If Exdeath is cursed, which is quite possible, it is pretty bad for him, since you won't be getting re-raise or any of those extra features out of Exdeath that we would essentially want. But you know, Shrekken can still survive on her own. It just hurts the performance overall of this party. But so far from my initial testing of this, Luciel is a pretty good, you know, character to slot in there as well. And still, I find that the performance is quite good. I do have my own limited vision cards on here, but this setup, I think, still elaborates quite a bit of speed for these characters. And yes, there's probably some equipment improvements that I can definitely do, but taking a look at Shrekken for this kind of setup, 123 speed, 12k HP, 1800 magic, all is pretty good with decent amounts of single target and AoE resistance. 91 accuracy, at least for now, seems to be generally working out pretty well for me. Exdeath, on the contrary, 124, 12k, 16k HP, and he just kind of ends up being a great little tankish character with a build like this, because it is extremely hard for opponents to get through it. And the one other thing that I will say is that I've seen this party thrown in with a tank such as Old Doa instead of a healer, and the performance seemed to just overall be worse. Exdeath is already incredibly tanky and still an really insanely good DPS. What that means overall is that you essentially don't really need a tank. More often than not, the extra healing capability that you get from a healer as a third member works way better. So yeah, this is just been like really just not super long amounts of testing yet, but has worked out for me incredibly well so far. So I'm pretty damn happy with it. I think this is a perfectly adequate mid-tier build that is less built on limited time vision cards and still very capable and very possible to leverage against the current meta. As I said, I fought Earth teams tonight, I fought Lightning teams, I fought some Fire teams, and so far the results have just been absolutely great. And in guild battle, anytime you get through 6 stars and you still have almost full HP, feels really nice. All right, so switching back over, now we are going to talk about the second team, which is the Hero Mont team. So let me just bring that up again. Nope, there we go. We'll talk about this, which is this secondary party. Now, this one I would say is not incredibly friendly either, because again, we are looking at a lot of limited time vision cards. But what I will say, this probably is my overall contender for the strongest team in the game. Once again, evasion is completely and totally up shit creek without a paddle, and yeah, that's not mincing words. I think everything that I've seen for an evasion team going against this, it looked like first year units trying to fight current units. That's how significantly strong. But as you can see, the possibility, like, we only have one permanent unit in this party. Yuna as well as AC Cloud are both in here, looking, you know, pretty essential for incredibly high top grade rate performance in here. Yuna has Sniper, has the Guard Knight, I think it is, as his sub, and Hero King Mont is just essentially Hero King Mont. What we'll note is that the reliquary equipment goes directly onto Mont. I absolutely agree with that. Bell as well for AP generation is incredibly important. Venus, that's one of the things he wants the most. Sildrip is an interesting choice, but I think is correct just for the DPS that it provides. And then we have the Yuripa for the 10-2 collaboration, which, as I've pretty much predicted, an agility card like that, 18% agility, it's incredibly strong here. We have the old Final Fantasy XIV vision card rocking up the light DPS. The FF5 Hiryu card also here, providing extra human killer. The A2 card from last year from Nier, which is almost certainly just not coming back anytime. The AC Cloud vision card, and last but not least Ramza. There's no reason to say that this will be anything less than probably the most expensive possible build, because you also needed the foresight of just having all of these greatsword and gunner combination cards to work just as well as they do together. And this is over, at this point, what is essentially what, I guess it would be fair to say that you could have built this with the correct investments within the last year, but it would have been a little bit presumptuous. Either way, it's essentially building on the idea that Greatsword was already had some really strong characters, and Hero King Mont is absolutely top tier, and Yuna has been looking top tier. So this is essentially the completion of what we've been seeing recently, putting Yuna and AC Cloud with that one extra character they needed to be really, really insanely good together. This is essentially it. What I will say is that most of the equipment here is pretty accessible normally in the game, and that's the nicest thing I'm going to say about this composition. But the performance here is incredibly high, just insanely at the end of the day. So that is noting. Now, let's take a look at what I have done with this build, because this isn't the only one I've done. Also done this. Now, honestly, I'm not particularly set on this. As you can see, this is not the one that I focused on after some people commented saying, hey, why don't you get a collaboration character to max? There you go. I did it. And I'll just a little bit slower build more. And things to note about this, like, first off, I think that Yuna is almost essential to the success here. You can probably just do all great swords and be okay, but Yuna is so good at just staying back and buffing with the auto shot ability, so she just constantly is hitting, while Hero King Mont is surviving through tons and tons of DPS. Same with Cloud, and it just works really well. Now, of course, I have a bias to Light Veritas, so that's why essentially I put her in this party at the moment. But the one thing that I am currently working on is just potentially, or not even potentially, just throwing in another greatsword character that could be thrown in instead. Possibility for me at the moment that I am kind of working on, but is proving to be difficult with the trial challenges, is Dark Veritas, because I think that he actually does have a pretty high chance of being really, really good with Hero King Mont and just being very, very synergistic, very combo-y together, focusing more on the greatsword aspect and maybe a little bit less on guns. Other great swords, I mean, I think that you're either going with the gun route or the greatsword route, and other great swords that are possible. OG Cloud, no. Trying to think about who more recently I've been seeing. There is always the potential of katanas just working their way into this, since there are so many VCs recently with katanas, but the more and more I keep thinking back to like the potential of units that are greatsword compatible, the more I just hone in on Dark Veritas, because I think that Dark Veritas synergizes both not only on the greatsword front, but also the light dark front. So Dark Bahamut's vision card also works really, really well there and can supplement in for some of those limited cost vision cards, which, as I've talked about, are a little bit annoying to get because essentially it is such a high cost. Personally, I'm going with the, as you can see already, the Dark Bahamut card, since I am missing the AC Cloud one. I'm not missing too terribly much else, but some of the things that I am missing, besides a vision card slot here, I think you can potentially get with the light-dark combination, as well as just some other great sort of cards. So yeah, the missing out of certain cards will hurt you. And for example, that Cloud vision card that we were talking about from the Advent Children event, that's a 60 attack boost, which isn't exactly the easiest. So yeah, these are two of the what are looking to be just the absolute best of the best right now. It will depend on just essentially what's going to happen with other things such as vision cards, because at this point Exdeath has a little bit of an advantage over Mont, that he essentially has his vision card already, and it's incredibly synergistic with the team that you see here. Whereas Mont will be getting a vision card relatively soon that will be more permanent. Maybe it'll come with an Esper too that will outright replace Sildra here, and we can get a different one in, and that will work wonders. But yeah, it's so much this, that, maybe this, maybe that kind of thing, that it's hard to say exactly and predict exactly what will happen. But whether you're looking for Exdeath or you are looking at Hero King Mont, it seems to be that it is broken down at this point into two entirely different paths. And you're either going to be following one or the other, because yeah, it's just essentially like the two characters are not really synergistic and not showing up in any specific teams with each other. So I would expect that to probably hold true, seeing that it's either like physical or magical at this option, and that seems very. The last thing that I do want to talk about is the potential extra cost to the Hero King Mont. The Hero King Mont, for all intents and purposes, will probably want to run the Ice King Jaden, because a lot of the things that you would want is that extra accuracy. If you have that extra accuracy in there, you're going to be hunting things way easier. You're going to be making it much smoother, and that is another cost on top of this team already. But I do feel like it's just going to be really strong at the end of the day, and one of the best things. Either way, I'm enjoying it, and we'll report more as things develop. Thanks so much for watching. Take care. Later.